Okay. Good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to very warmly welcome all of you in this pleasant evening to this induction of the Certified Internal Auditor Program on behalf of the Academy of Finance and also the IIA Sri Lanka chapter. Now, today with us, we have the current governor and the past president, Mr. Prasanna Balachandra, from representing IIS Sri Lanka, and Nuwan Jayatilaka, one of AIA alumni members, as well as, last not least, Ashen Jayasekara, who is your facilitator for the module. We are here today to help us here. Hi, Ashen. So let's start the session. Let me take you through. Just one moment. Just give me a second. Yes, let me start taking you through. So once again, welcome to the Certified Internal Auditor Orientation Program. And first of all, my name is Kapila Doramgada. I'm the founder, managing director, and the academic director of the Academy of Finance. So we are the organization or the institute which is offering you this program of Certified Internal Auditor Program. And during this session, actually, what you're going to do is you will get a very short, quick introduction to the Academy of Finance. And then Mr. Prasanna Balachandra, who's the governor of IIA Sri Lanka, is going to introduce you your brief introduction for those who are not familiar with the institute about the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, the global body, as well as the IIA Sri Lankan chapter. And then I will introduce and hand you over to Mr. Ashen Jayasekara, who is going to be a facilitator for this module, and he will take you through about the CIA program, Certified Internal Auditor Program, in more detail, as well as about what you are going to learn and what is your entry criteria and how you are going to assess. All these details are going to be explained to you by Mr. Ashen Jayasekara. And once we do that, we have invited Mr. Nuwan Jayatilaka, who is a qualified certified internal auditor who has completed the program during the recent past to start the program with us. So he's going to share with you his learning experience and, more importantly, the advice that he has to offer you when you join a program like this. And then we are going to take a short while. Actually, we have a lot of participants who are prospective participants who have already registered in this program, as well as who want to experience and get a further idea about this program. So we will take a couple of minutes to get an idea of who these participants are. So you will get an opportunity to take a couple of seconds and introduce you to the rest of the crowd, because this is anyway, this is going to happen in the immediate term as an online program. So it is unlike in a physical class where you get to see and be able to talk to meet each other. Here you're not going to do that. So therefore we are going to give you this opportunity to get to know who else is there in this forum with you. And then once we do this, I'm going to hand it to completely to Ashen, and he's going to take you through, depending on the time it takes, the rest of the agenda for the program. So that's what our plan for the day, and latest by 8:30 we are going to finish this program. That's the plan. And of course, Academy of Finance is an education institute with the clear focus on educating professionals relating to finance related aspects. So from that perspective, we do have training and coaching programs for non-finance professionals who want to be knowledgeable and known to be thorough about the financial perspective from their respective career point of view. And then also we have a series of programs that are offered to specialized finance professionals for them to gain the specific knowledge in the respective areas where they want to polish their knowledge and sharpen their skills in a specific areas. From that point of view, we have partnered with the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment, a body which has been started by the London Stock Exchange and which is a chartered body now, to offer a series of investment related programs. And the programs that we offer have programs relating to the investments, the wealth management, risk management, compliance, and a couple of programs of this nature. And then we have also partnered with CMA Australia, Certified Management Accountants Australia program, to offer a management accounting program which is clearly offered to financial professionals as well as non-financial professionals who want to have financial acumen. But right now you are here for this program offered by the Institute of Internal Auditors. The Institute of Internal Auditors, the most globally, the most recognized, the most respected body into internal auditing. So I'm not going to tell you too much about the Institute of Internal Auditors because we have a more appropriate person than me to tell you about this program. So therefore, now I'm going to introduce Mr. Prasanna Balachandran, who is actually the Chief Risk and Control Officer for Hemas Holdings. And he's also currently the Governor of IIA Sri Lanka. So I'm Prasanna, you can take over. You can tell them about the IIA, the global, as well as what you do in IIA Sri Lanka chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kapila. Hope I'm clear. Just 1 minute for me to share my screen. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's a very pleasant experience to speak to so much of young aspiring internal auditors who want to come into the profession or make their mark in their profession. There's the difference between a job and a profession. Whereas job is basically what we do to just make our money. So same job, if you go through some sort of a training and if you go through some sort of an education, that becomes a profession. So most of us who do internal audit as a job, where you guys are trying to make it as your profession by getting qualified, by getting certified. So IIA Global, or the Institute of Internal Auditors Institute of Internal Auditors is a organization which was founded in US. Later, they spread across the globe with a lot of local chapters. They mastered this program called Certified Internal Auditor Program, which is a qualification for all the internal auditors who want to certify themselves, who want to show that they are qualified to be the internal auditors. With that purpose, they rolled out this CIA program in US and all around the world. So today you guys are going to start the program and it's going to be your first day or the first session. So the global IIA, right? So first of all, like why you should become a member of global IIA and why you should study for the CIA qualification. If you take the global IIA, that's an organization which is in almost 170 odd countries. Every country you go, you find a local chapter there. So if you go there, if you go to a particular country, say for example, in case of migration or in terms of education, for whatever reason, if you go and contact the local chapter, and if you say you are an IIA member and you are a CIA, and the amount of respect you are going to get from them and amount of support you are going to get from them is very high. So that is one reason why you should be part of IIA and why you should go for the CIA qualification to make yourself as a global professional. Second reason why you should do this, IIA is, unfortunately, in Lanka, when Sri Lankan companies, advances, they don't mention about CIA. But if you decide to go to Middle East or if you decide to go to any other country, this is a must qualification to be an internal auditor. So I know many people who went to Middle East and they wanted to go to become an internal auditor, and whenever they went for the internal audit interviews, the first question asked from them, are you a IIA member? Are you a certified internal auditor? That's a second reason why you should do this qualification. Third reason why you should do this qualification is basically this is your master's, right? You'd have done already your accounting related qualification or any other qualification, a degree or whatever, and this is going to be your master's. This is going to be your master's actually in internal auditing. So the global IIA, which provides so much of resources for you. So if you have time, if you visit the global IIA website, you will see they do a lot of researches regarding internal audit. They do a lot of publications on internal audit. So during this COVID-19 pandemic time, we were referring the global website a lot because every other day they were uploading guidance, what we should do, how we should maintain our ethics when it comes to COVID, when the business challenges are changing in terms of COVID-19. So to update yourself with the research, to know what is happening globally in the IIA profession, you have to become a member of IIA and you have to go for this certified internal audit qualification. So in Sri Lanka, this institute was founded in 2005 and one of the founder members is our Ashen Jayasekara. So in 2005, they understood there's a need for IIA, a forum for internal auditors. With that idea, they formed it and they went and registered that with the global IIA, and it became an affiliated body of global IIA. So in Sri Lanka, we are trying to create a network of internal auditors, and we are trying to promote these kind of qualifications and certifications for the internal auditors, and we are trying to get much better recognition for the internal audit profession in our country. So we work a lot with private firms, we work a lot with government organizations in order to promote, in order to advocate the internal audit profession in our country. So by stepping into the CIA program and by becoming a member of IIA, you also can be part of that journey, and you also can become a proud member of the internal audit community. Last thing which I want to tell you, which is something I read in the morning in the newspapers, it's about moonshot thinking. So John F. Kennedy in 1962, he told the people, Americans are going to be setting their foot in the moon this decade, in the decade of 1960 to 70, right? He set the target, and 1969, the Americans achieved that target. We saw that's what we call a moonshot thinking or moonshot targets. So we saw that in UK as well. Sometime 6-7 months back, UK decided we are going to go for, or many companies, right? Not only UK, many companies, many forums, they decided we are going to go for a vaccine. And today they are rolling out vaccine. So you guys have that moonshot thinking. Most important thing in this program is set a deadline. When are you going to complete this? Don't drag it. Set a deadline. By next December, you will be a certified internal auditor, right? So just 1 year or less than that, become a certified internal auditor. Have that target, have an ambitious target, and train under Academy of Finance, and make sure you are getting that goal. Thank you very much. And if you need any assistance or whatever from IIA Sri Lanka in terms of your education or training, please feel free to contact us. Our website, and I mean, if you search IIA Sri Lanka on Google, we will be available there. Thank you and all the best. Kapila, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Rosanna. So thank you very much for the very useful introduction. Some of you are very familiar with the institute and its activities in Sri Lanka, but whereas some others may not be. So thank you very much, Prasanna, for your time and your help in this regard. At the same time, I really value your comment because we need to have that moonshot because you need to have that motivation today itself. You will have to follow the classes, do the proper sessions, and aim for the exam and plan to be a certified internal auditor. Thank you once again. So let me now introduce to you Mr. Ashen Jayasekara. Ashen, in fact, is the Deputy Managing Partner of BDO Sri Lanka, and he's also the Managing Partner for BDO in Maldives. And Ashen is also a member of the Governing Council of CA Sri Lanka. At present, he's in his career, in his profession, he heads the cybersecurity, fraud, and forensic service practice in the firm with over 17 years of experience in overseeing corporate governance reviews, risk assessment, and compliance. And he is a fellow chartered accountant, fellow CA, and he's got an MBA and a BSc honors in information systems, and as well as he's a certified internal auditor, CISA USA, as well as CFP USA. These are only some of his credentials because it takes a lot of time for me to go through all that. And most importantly, he has been the facilitator for this program since we started first offering this program in Sri Lanka. So I will move out of the screen, Ashen. You can start sharing the screen. Thank you.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can, but it is in the.
Right. I hope you can hear me clearly as well.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So as Prasanna stated, the IIA or the Institute of Internal Auditors is the sole authority when it comes to the issuing of
But
standards.
in the sorry to interrupt you. Slideshow model. It's only a. I think you should have to go for the slideshow model.
Yeah. Is it all right now?
Yeah, sure. That's right. Okay.
Right. So the IIA, as stated by Prasanna, is the sole authority when it comes to the issuing of internal audit standards globally. It is also the chief advocate of the internal audit profession, and the IIA offers various certifications, and the most popular certification that they offer today is the CIA, which is called the Certified Internal Auditor. They of course have 4 more certifications that they offer, but the most popular one is the Certified Internal Auditor Program. Now, if you take the Certified Internal Auditor Program, if you look at the number of certified people in Sri Lanka, I would say that there would be approximately about 15, no more than that. So if you can obtain this certification, pass your exams, and obtain this certification, you will be one of a few, and as Prasanna stated, if you were to migrate or go abroad, this certification will obviously hold you in good stead. In Sri Lanka, of course, unfortunately, still it is the chartered accountants or the CIMA or the ACC accountants who are considered to be good auditors. But the CIA is certainly gaining strength. When you look at certain job advertisements put out by the government, put out by multinational companies, even banks or listed companies, big conglomerates in Sri Lanka, you find that they would invariably maybe it would not be the first prerequisite, but the third or fourth. They would say that if you have the CIA, you would certainly be at an advantage in securing the job that you have applied for. So the CIA program basically consists of three parts: part one, part two, and part three. And if you look at the three parts, if you want to pass the first part, that is called the essentials of internal auditing, that's the title that they have given for CIA part one, you obviously have to know about the contents that this part would cover. The last syllabus change for the CIA program, of course, occurred in 2019 on the 1st of January. And since then, they have not yet conducted a revision of the syllabus. So it will last, the next syllabus revision would most likely take place in a year or two. So these are the topics covered in the first part. The first topic would be the foundations of internal auditing. And what we find, the areas that are covered in the foundations of internal auditing are the definition of internal audit, the vision of internal audit, the code of ethics, etc. So it lays the foundation. If you were to pursue a career in internal auditing, this first topic basically introduces you to the concepts of internal auditing. The second topic would touch on independence, objectivity, proficiency, and quality. Independence, of course, is, as you know, if you want to be a good internal auditor, your department or your internal audit function needs to be placed in the right place in your organization, where according to the standards they state that there has to be a dual reporting line, where functionally you report to the audit committee and administratively you report to the CEO. So the topic related to independence covers all that. It tells you where in the organization your division needs to be placed. The next topic is objectivity. Now, objectivity, unlike independence relates to the function, as it were, but objectivity is connected to the auditor. So what they state in the standard related to objectivity is that when you carry out your work, you have to be objective. That is, you must not let others influence your work, your scope of work, the field work that you carry out. When you draft the report, you should do all that in an unbiased manner. You should not in any way allow the management to influence your output or your field work or the audit plan, which includes the audit scope. Proficiency also is a very important area in the standards. They very clearly specify that when you carry out the work of an internal auditor, you need to be proficient in what you do. If you are requested to carry out an audit related to, let's say, treasury bonds, treasury bonds or treasury bills, investments, you need to be proficient in that area. If you are not competent, if you are not qualified, if you are not skilled, if you do not possess the required experience to carry out that particular work, what the standard says is that you should not, in that case, undertake that sort of work. Audit quality is also an important area. In due care and quality. Due care is all about when you carry out your audit work, you must exercise a sufficient amount of due diligence. You must be very careful, you must be focused, you must not be negligent. That's what the standard says. And quality, of course, is also very, very important. In the standard, it states that you need to have a quality assurance mechanism in your internal audit department. It could be an internal QAR, or you could get an external independent person to carry it out. So whatever said and done, according to the standards, successful or effective internal audit function requires proper quality assurance mechanisms to be in place, whether they are in-house or independent, whether they're carried out by those within the organization or outside the organization. You need to have these QAR policies and procedures in place. Governance is a very important area. Governance is all about how an organization is directed and controlled. In the standard, they mention about the role of the board of directors, the role of the chief audit executive or chief internal auditor, whatever name you call it, whatever designation you call it, the role of the head of internal audit. It gives guidance as to what sort of governance mechanisms, processes, procedures need to be in place in an organization for it to have effective internal controls and governance mechanisms. Risk management is very, very important. As you all know, most of you, some of you I can see from the names are very experienced. Some of you may be in the initial stages of your career. Internal audit is all about, according to the definition of internal audit, it's all about improving the effectiveness of governance, risk management, and internal control processes in an organization. Your main job is not to focus on the manufacturing process or the efficiency of all that, but your main, how you add value to an organization according to the definition of internal audit as given in this International Professional Practices Framework, is improving the effectiveness of GRC. And GRC is governance, risk management, and controls. So that's what you need to basically focus on, and that is the area that you need to be proficient on. Then in this part, we also touch on controls, different types of controls. In fact, that is what we need to immerse ourselves in, right? If we do not understand when we review a process in a company, if we do not understand clearly what sort of controls need to be in place, then we will never be effective. So in the standards that you're going to learn in the next few weeks or months, you will learn about how to identify internal controls, the classification of internal controls. Internal controls generally could be preventive internal controls, it could be detective internal controls or corrective internal controls. So we will learn about the different types of internal controls and the frameworks that are out there. For an internal auditor, you may already know this. Our Bible is the course of framework. The work that we do is all framed around the course of framework. So you need to understand what this framework is all about. And in CIA Part 1, there is a chapter dedicated to this framework. Then again, we learn about the importance of controls in applications. Today, in most organizations that we work in, operations are carried out through an ERP system. Now, in ERP systems, you find best practices embedded in ERP systems, the best internal controls. So if you are working in an organization that has not customized the ERP to a great extent, but use the ERP as it is with minor customization, you would see that the best practices, the best internal controls are built into ERP systems. And as internal auditors, it's no longer the manual controls that we need to check. We also need to be aware of these controls which are embedded or which are called system-based controls. They're all embedded in the ERP. So how can you possibly review a process and not take into consideration the controls in that process? And if those controls are inside the ERP system, you have to be able to review those controls. They could be input controls, process controls, or output controls. And we call all of those types of controls application controls. So you need to be a little proficient in IT systems and in the internal controls embedded in systems. So we learn about this, right? In part 1, we cover all this. So it's a very, very useful phase or stage in the CIA exam. The last area that you would focus on is fraud risks and controls. Now, what they say in the standards is, whenever you review a process, you've got to think about 2 types of risks, right? This was something that was introduced a few years ago into the CIA curriculum. What they say is that when you review a process, you need to consider fraud risks as well as IT risks. So let's assume that you are checking the process related to payments, and you identify through speaking to various staff members in your organization who are carrying out payments related work. Let's say you study the processes, and once you document this process, you got to sit back and think of all the frauds, different types of frauds that could occur in the payments process. All the things that could go wrong from a fraud perspective. Now, we all know there are different types of risks. There are strategic risks, there are financial risks, there are compliance risks, there could be IT risks, fraud risks. But here they say the emphasis must be placed on fraud risks. So going forward, when you carry out your assessments and when you review processes, you have to identify what are the fraud risks that are there in that process, and then see whether there are sufficient internal controls to mitigate those frauds. When we carry out our internal audit work, the firm where I work, some of our customers have stated to us that they want us to do a fraud risk assessment. This is no longer a separate exercise, right? This is a part of your internal audit work. Whatever the process that you review, based on the new standards, you will have to carry out a fraud risk assessment. And that means that you need to have a very good knowledge about what is a fraud risk and what are the different types of fraud risks that are there. If you are looking at the procurement process, you need to understand what are the types of risks that a company faces in all the processes related to procurement. It could be rigging of bids, supplier bias. There could be problems in the selection of certain suppliers, the quantities, the quality. You have to think of all that. So as an internal auditor, you've got to ask yourself now, do you have sufficient knowledge on fraud risks when you carry out your work? Are you able to, if you are told to look at investments, if you're told to look at the financial reporting framework, do you have sufficient knowledge to identify the fraud risks? Do you have sufficient knowledge to identify the red flags, right? Earlier on, I can remember in 2015, in 2016, 17, this fraud risks was not part of CIA Part 1. But now they have a separate chapter on this, right? So that shows you the importance of fraud risks, because fraud is prevalent today. It is a business, and the business of fraud is a growing business. Prasanna was talking to you about, I can remember, he said that he accessed the global website about the issues that companies face with regards to maybe fraud during COVID-19. So most of the guidelines that Prasanna may have looked at would have most likely provided guidelines on how to address the risk of fraud during COVID. As you all know, there is something called the fraud triangle. The fraud triangle basically consists of 3 elements. Pressure, that is when a fraud is being committed. Someone is always pressured or motivated into committing the fraud. Another aspect of the fraud triangle is opportunity. The opportunity element basically states that if one were to commit a fraud, he or she needs to have the opportunity to commit. So if cash is stolen, invariably it is someone who has access to cash. If a fictitious journal entry is raised in the system, it would be obviously someone who has access to raise journal entries. So opportunity is all about having access to do it. So you need opportunity, you need pressure or motivation as they call it. And apart from those 2 elements, the third element which makes up the fraud triangle is called rationalization. That is, to the fraudster, whenever they carry out a fraud, they somehow convince themselves psychologically, mentally, that what they are doing is justified. For example, they would say, due to COVID-19, my salary has been cut. Therefore, if I steal some money from the organization, it's okay. I deserve it. I'm entitled to it. You find during COVID, for example, most of the people sometimes are working from home. Therefore, certain important internal controls which they carry out, which they would have carried out when they were in office, most likely may have got deferred, delayed, or not being carried out in a work from home situation. So that gives rise to opportunity to commit fraud, right? So similarly, we found during COVID-19 payments being processed where banks were sent without going through the normal approval processes. In certain cases, banks were sent instructions by officers in the organization to process payments. So certain controls were bypassed. Now, in part 1, under fraud risks and controls, we touch on the areas that I talked about. Passing this exam is no easy task. The pass rates, I just went into the web this morning and I looked at some of the pass rates for part 1, part 2, and part 3. And I'm sorry to say that it is hovering around 40 to 45%, which means that if you were to sit for this exam, if 100 were to sit, only 45 would pass. The pass mark you have about 100 to 125 questions. You have to get 75% correct. And I'm sure one who would be speaking about his experiences would enlighten you, hopefully, about how he overcame all these challenges and managed to complete all three parts of the CIA program. So when you look at these 7 topics in part 1, you have the first one, the foundations of internal auditing, carries a weightage of about 15%. All these sections do not carry the same weightage. That is, if you sit for part 1, certain topics, there would be more questions. In certain topics, there would be a lesser number of questions. So you need to know when you're studying for the exam, the weightage placed on each of these topics. So it's basically 7 areas, and in order it is 15% for point 1, that is foundations of internal auditing, 15% for independence objectivity. For governance, it would be about 35%. Governance, risk management, all that carries a weightage of about 35%. Point 3, 4, and 5, and 6 carries a weightage of 35%. And fraud risks carry a weightage of about, let's say, 10%. So you need to be aware of the weightage placed on each of the topics, because you do not have much time when you prepare for these exams. We're all working and we're all stressed out with our work. So we need to study effectively and devote more time to areas where there is a higher weightage. So this is the structure of the exam. It's an MCQ exam, which means it's an online exam. In the first stage, you have 125 questions, 2 hours for the paper, 2 hours, 15 minutes, if I can remember correct. And the weightage also is given on this slide. So last year, I can remember before COVID, you had to go to a lab, an IT lab, and sit for it. But now, since the onset of COVID, they are allowing students to sit for this exam from their home, which is a very convenient way of doing things. When I went for the exam many years ago, I can remember they did a retinal scan. They got a biometric fingerprint. They recorded the entire session remotely through CCTV cameras. But now I think they have relaxed some of these requirements, and they have allowed students to sit for this exam from home. I think Rasika Amarasinghe has stated that exam from home is not available, so perhaps they have now reverted back to the old way of doing things. That is, you got to make an appointment at one of these IT labs in a private university. Moving on to part 2, these are the main areas in part 2. And the first area is managing the internal audit activity, right? Part 1 basically looks at the attribute standards. In internal audit standards, there are 3 types of standards: attribute standards, performance standards, and interpretation standards. So attribute standards basically related to the attributes that an internal auditor or an internal audit activity needs to possess, right? And all that is covered in part 1. But when you move into part 2, right, in part 2, you cover performance standards. Performance standards basically teach you about how to do an audit. If you look at the content 1, 2, 3, and 4 given on this slide, you can see that they are all related to performing the audit engagement, right? So the weightage is also given, how to plan the audit, how to perform the audit. In section 1, managing the internal audit activity, they look at internal audit operations, establishing a risk-based audit plan, and then communicating and reporting to senior management and the board. If you look at the second topic, planning the engagement, which carries a weightage of about 20%, you basically look at the planning process as a whole. In the third point, that is performing the engagement, that is all about how you gather evidence, right? How you carry out your field work. It touches upon the use of questionnaires, interviews, flow charting, etc., etc. Then you also look at analysis, evaluation, and how engagements need to be supervised, right? When engagement is planned, you have to ensure that the engagement is properly planned and supervised by the manager or the partner or the head of the function. So there are standards issued in this area, which you will learn about in part 2. And part 2, as I said, mainly focuses on the performance standards, right? Performance standards relate to how to perform the internal audit. So the exam is similar to the exam in part 1, but part 1 had 125 questions, but part 2 has only 100 questions, right? And if you move on to part 3 is very, what you would call, you learn about the core principles of management, of business, right? Part 3, if you look at the content of part 3, you can see that this section basically focuses on business concepts, right? If you look at business acumen, which carries a weightage of about 35%, they are most likely you would learn about how organizations set their objectives, the different management styles. You have these authoritative management styles, because when you carry out participative, more democratic kind of management styles, about corporate culture, because you know when you carry out your internal audit work, you have to deal with people with all sorts of management styles, and you need to know how to tackle them, how to carry out your work in a subtle manner in order to minimize antagonizing the management. So if you want to carry out your work without annoying them too much, without causing them too much pain, right? Without causing too much annoyance to the management, then you need to know about these different styles of management. Then you will be able to tackle them more effectively, because it's all about politics at the end of the day. In business acumen, you also cover about the different organizational structures, right? In organization, there are different organizational structures, and you need to have some sort of knowledge about all that. Then, of course, a third important area under business acumen would be data analytics. You see, the concept of sampling is now obsolete. I think no one can talk a lot about this, where he works at the MAS group. They use different types of analytics tools. It could be audit command language, IDEA, it could be forest pin. Whatever the tool that you use today, all these tools look at the population of transactions, not just a sample. The tool enables you to identify exceptions, suspicious transactions, or what you call transactions with red flags, so that when you carry out your internal audit, you can focus more on those suspicious transactions or exceptions. And the chances are that you might detect, the possibility of detecting a fraud is greatly enhanced through the use of data analytics. The second point is on information security. There are various standards on this, ISO 27001 to in this section you would learn about the importance of ensuring that the data in your organizations is properly secured, confidentiality is maintained, because in IS auditing there are three important concepts. They say that data must be held in confidence, the data must be available at all times, and mechanisms must be there to ensure the integrity of data. Integrity, availability, and confidentiality are three important pillars when it comes to data security, and you will learn a little bit about the various concepts in part 3. Then in information technology, you will learn about, I think you will learn about the different types of application and system softwares, the different types of IT infrastructure, the different types of IT control frameworks. I'm sure some of you may be aware of important control framework called the COBIT framework. Now, this COBIT framework is a very important framework in the field of information systems auditing. All IS auditors need to be aware of this framework. What is COSO to us? COBIT is to IS auditors. The last area in part 3 is financial management. There you learn about important financial concepts. That is a little bit about financial accounting, debits and credits, and a little bit about management accounting. That is cost accounting, break-even analysis, variance analysis, costing, etc. And if you are from an accounting background, you would note that most likely you would have covered most of these areas in whatever degree that you may have done. If you have done a degree in business, if you have done CIMA, ACCA, Chartered, or if you have followed a diploma in finance, you would have invariably covered these topics given in part 3. So part 3 also the exam consists of 100 questions for 2 hours, right? So if we were to move to the next slide, these are the entry criteria. So if you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, you have nothing to worry. You can straight away enroll in the program. If you have followed a 2-year course, post-secondary course, that is after A-levels, if you have followed a 2-year course, and you have not maybe completed a bachelor's level degree or a master's level degree, most likely, invariably, I think you need to have 5 years of verified internal audit experience. If you have no qualification at all, I can remember even in the previous classes that we've had at the Academy of Finance, some students have many, many years of experience, but unfortunately do not have a bachelor's degree, or they are part qualified. So if they are part qualified, if they have finished two years of their degree program, you may be eligible under point 2. But if you have no qualification to show other than your O-levels and A-levels, you would require 7 years of verified experience. It says in internal audit or its equivalent. So when they say it's equivalent, sometimes you might be able to include external audit experience. An external audit is an audit of the financial statements. So some auditors may not have done internal audits, but if you have done external audits, in external audits also, we cover controls, right? Yes, Chirag, do you have a question that you would like to ask? All right, so I will go on. So if you have done experience in risk management, Yes, yes, go ahead. If you have a question, you may ask. I think one of the students have posted a question in the chat box. Let me check this question. COVID, right? Okay. So experience in compliance areas, experience in risk management, experience in quality assurance would also will also be relevant, right? Because it states here experience in internal audit or its equivalent. So if you have experience in risk management, in compliance divisions or compliance functions, or even in quality assurance, that may qualify as valid experience to qualify for the program. You don't have to complete under point two all 5 years to get into the program. Or if you're in your third year, they say you can enroll, but by the time you apply for the certification, you need to have completed 5 years. So even under point three, you may not require 7 years to start off with. But if you have completed 5 years and 2 more are remaining, what they say is you enroll in the program. Once you finish all the stages, and when you apply for the certification at that point, you need to have to complete all 7 years, right? So let's move on to the next slide. So I think this is of course for once you complete the program, that is about 10 to 15 classes, 2-hour sessions. The academy will conduct, this is separate of course from the CIA exam. This would be a mock exam of sorts. They would conduct a 2-hour examination with 125 multiple choice questions and subject you to also a work-based assignment. This is something that we introduced very recently. And if you manage to complete both these parts or components, you would get a certification from the academy that you've completed the program. But of course, if you want the CIA certification, you have to, that's a separate process altogether. You have to visit the global website and enroll, register for the exams, which we will talk about. I think Kaushik has a question on that. Kaushik, we will talk about all that in the Q&A session later on. And then I think the next slide, I have minimized the slide. Let me get it. Yeah, okay. So I think the next speaker would be Nuwan Jayatilaka, and Kapila will introduce Nuwan to you. So I will continue later on once Nuwan finishes and the introductions have been completed. I will continue my lecture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashen, for your very detailed explanation. I think there is no one better than you here in Sri Lanka to explain all these details in such great detail. And also, I felt that even if you are not following the program, and that session itself was a very good educational session for us to have some insights about what internal auditing is all about. So let me now introduce to you, just give me a second, our next presenter, who is none other than Nuwan Jayatilaka. Nuwan is a manager, group risk and control attached to MS Capital, and he is a qualified certified internal auditor who started the program with us. So I'm not going to take too much time, Nuwan. I actually thank you very much for again accepting our invitation and just to share your experience on how you made it, as well as tell them what they should do and what they shouldn't do, and how all of them should be qualified in another 2 years' time as certified internal auditors. Thank you, Nuwan. Over to you. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kapila Doramgoda. It is an honor to speak to all of you, and I must thank again for the opportunity given, for the invitation to speak to you and share my experience about CIA. I hope my voice is clear to everyone. If there's any problem with the voice, please post a comment on the chat box. So let me first start sharing. Before sharing my experience, I'll first thank Mr. Ashin Jayasekara, Mr. Sujit Christie, and Mr. Kapila Ramgoda for their guidance and encouragement for me to, go ahead and complete this exam. I was able to, complete all 3 stages in the first attempt with their guidance throughout. Thank you so much again. So let me share my experience about the CIA exam and what you should do, or you can probably follow my, style of doing this thing, or I'm sure you all have, your ways of, facing exams, studying, and all of that. But let me share some, hints with you to successfully face this exam and complete it. So the key is to the most important thing is to actually enroll for the CIA exam with the Global IIA and register yourselves for the examination. Most of us, tend to follow classes, attend all sessions, but without registering for the exam. And after studies, we tend to continue for months, thinking that, okay, I will sit for the exam one day after completing my studies, or after completing some questions, or doing some studies, but that day won't come simply because we are all busy. We are all working for big organizations in the country. So you will not easily find that time or free time to study and go ahead and finish your exam. So the best thing is to enroll yourself for the program with Global IIA, register yourselves, and then start your studies, complete your studies, and I advise you, or I suggest that you attempt the exam at least within a month or maximum 1.5 months time from the day you complete your classes. Because it is very important. You will be fresh, in terms of your knowledge to apply at the exam. So it is important that you do not delay it any further, because otherwise you will lose that momentum. Then once you register, you attend your classes. There's a very well experienced panel of lecturers from the Academy of Finance, headed by Mr. Ashin Jayasekara. They will give you all guidance. He has already touched on the subject areas in all 3 parts. I'm sure it will be very interesting to go through all those sessions and understand a lot of practical aspects of internal auditing, which you will apply at your exam. So Mr. Ashin Jayasekara also touched on the content of the 3 stages. So I'm not going to discuss about the details of the 3 stages. In fact, the stage 1 has 7 main study areas, and stage 2 and 3 have 4 main areas of study each. There can be many subsections in these main areas, but you don't have to worry because it's all when you go through these sessions, you will understand most of these things are known to you. You're already familiar with those because most of these are coming from your practical application of internal audit. then the key, I said, you must first enroll yourselves with the program and register yourselves. Then the second most important thing is your studies. Probably after completing your classes and or self-studies, because I had to, do self-studies for the second and third stage because of the common, concern, as Mr. Kapila Duramgoda and Mr. Ashen Jayasekara highlighted. Most of the students don't attempt the exam after classes. I did not have a batch of students to continue for the second and third stages. So I had to self-study. So I always, suggest you sit for the exam. It is the most important thing. So after studies, I planned for practicing questions, because that is the key to pass this examination. As Mr. Jayasekar said, this may not be an easy exam, by looking at statistics. But when you get into it, you will understand. I'm sure all of you will understand that it is not a very difficult or difficult task to get through, because most of you are already qualified from a accounting body or either graduates. So you already have that knowledge. But most importantly, if you are a practical auditor, an internal auditor who apply your knowledge from the IIA or IIA standards, or from any other sources, if you are a person who really applies all of those knowledge in your practice, you can get through this exam easily. So when it comes to the practicing of questions, what I did was I'll touch on the first stage. After finishing after finishing one section, I used to stay at office at least for 1 hour after completing my work, and then I used to read the same study pack or the study materials, and that is how I managed it with my work schedules. So I made sure that I continuously read those study texts to be to be ready to face the exam, and also to practice questions. So as and when I complete studying a single section, I used to do some questions. In fact, the Academy of Finance provided question banks at that time, in printed form, which helped me get through the stage one. So I used to practice a lot of questions. And in terms of practicing questions, I was, very particular about timing, because timing per question is the most important thing, because when you go to the exam, you'll find it as the most critical thing, managing time at the exam, because you will get only 1 minute, 12 seconds per question, 125 questions to attempt in 150 minutes. So it is not an easy task. And some of the questions are actually, you will see a 1-page or 2-page scenario before you answer a particular question. So you need more time for questions like that. At the same time, you can save time from smaller questions. So my strategy was actually to reduce time as much as possible per question when I practice. So at the very beginning, when I started practicing questions, I spent about 3 minutes per question. So I knew for a fact that I'm not going to be able to get through with that timing. So I practiced more and more, at least 3-4 times the same question bank until I got my per question time down to about 30 seconds. So I with that, I had the confidence with that, if I can manage a familiar question within 30 seconds or less, I will be able to manage a question at the real exam, in a more efficient manner. That gave me a lot of confidence. I'm sure it will give you too a lot of confidence if you practice a lot. Mr. Ashen Jayasekar, even before I started this program, I met him at BDO. He said, you can get through this exam one if you practice a lot of questions. And I followed that, advice, and that is how I got through the exam. So that's about, practicing questions. And then, when you come to the real exam, you will see that, most of the questions that you practiced are not, or won't be there at the real exam. But if you have that confidence with regard to the time, with regard to time and your studies or your knowledge about the area that you're going to apply, I'm sure you will be able to get through it easily, because every question, most of the times, you will always have 4 answers, and 2 answers would be obviously wrong ones, right? So if you have the knowledge, if you have studied well, you can simply eliminate those 2 answers, and you're left with just 2 seemingly correct answers. And within about 1 minute's time, you should pick pick the most appropriate answer, and proceed to the next one. So that will also, I'm sure, will also give you some relief, because you can quickly eliminate 2 answers and then attempt to pick the most appropriate answer and proceed. So don't worry. I mean, although the pass rate is very low at the moment, and it's a bit there's a bit of difficulty to get through, but if you practice it right, you can get through. And yeah, there's like any other MCQ based exam, you will have the option to come back and review your answers. So if you practice properly and save time per question, you will actually have time at the end to also come back and review some of the answers that you've provided. But you have a doubt, if you have a doubt, you can always come back and review. That opportunity is also there, and will support in gaining a few more marks. So how did I manage it with my work? Because like all of you, I being a manager in one of the large organizations in the country, I had to manage my studies or my study time among my work, time for my family, all of that. But what I did was, as I said before, I spent an additional hour or 2 at the office itself, so you get free time from the family, and then go back home. I used to go back home, at night, take a proper rest, spend some time with kids, and then I sat to practice questions. So with questions, I'm sure most of these questions, and especially the study areas, are very interesting to a practical internal auditor. So I didn't feel sleepy. I was able to practice a lot of questions, which was the key to success in this exam. So I'll if I may summarize, this exam is actually this exam and the qualification itself is actually for practical internal auditors, like all of you. So if you are a practical auditor and determined to get through this exam, face this exam with confidence, you can definitely get through. There is no difficulty at all. But you got to be someone who applies your knowledge in practice, and and have that confidence backed by practice, or practicing questions and all of that. In fact, my organization, being one of the leading apparel manufacturers in the South Asia, have some of the best internal control systems, and we use data analytics and other advanced audit techniques also a lot, as Mr. Ashan Jayasekara said. So that too helped me apply my knowledge gained through IIA studies or CIA studies directly into operation. And that practice too helped me learn a lot, or understand a lot of these concepts that are being taught in CIA. I started off saying there is a highly experienced or well experienced, very well recognized panel of lecturers at Academy of Finance to support you. So have confidence in them. Have confidence in yourself as well, and you will realize after facing the exam that this is not at all a difficult task or difficult one to get through. I'll before finishing my session, I will let you know a few sources of information or sources of materials. There is a nice blog in internet. If you get time, please log in and read, which is I Passed the CIA Exam. It is accessed by thousands of students from across the globe. You can just log in and read. There's a real good amount of experience and information shared by many students around the world, as well as some proper structured guidance as well for students who are planning to sit for the exam. And IIA Global website too have a lot of learning materials or information to refer to. So that's about my experience. If you wish to reach out to me for any additional information regarding my learning experience, I'm happy to help you. You can contact me via Academy of Finance. And I wish you, I wish each and every one of you all the very best in this exam. And I'm sure those who have registered this time will definitely get through. And don't forget, register yourselves first, then plan your exams, soon after your studies, and then attempt second and third stages as well until you get the final qualification into your hand. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Nuan. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and that inspirational touch. We really value that. And just in a minute, like say what all, by the way I got it, just to summarize it, your commitment, a regular commitment in studying and attending the classes. And you told me that you read the notes twice, right, each note. And you told me that each question you practice 4 times. And also planning and scheduling the exams immediately or just before you finish the session, so that you will not be delaying it. Just within at least a month of finishing the sessions, just do the exam. Right? Okay. Correct. Thank you, Nuan, once again. So we will let you have contacts of Nuan also if you wish to clarify anything further. So let me just take a few minutes actually now. What we are going to do now is of course just 2 things, like we are planning to finish according to the scheduled timing. Now, like I told you at the beginning, I will give you an opportunity to each one of you. Don't take a lot of time, right? Just tell what your name is and where you work, and if you like to share your designation, your name, place of work, and designation if you like to share. And we'll just make it very short so that we'll go through all of you and then keep little time for questions and answer. So what I will do is, it's easier and faster. if I invite each one of you, I will start from based on the names that is appearing here. Can I start with Surain? Would you like to introduce yourself? You can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Surain, Dimel?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yes. Yes, I'm Surain Demand from Commercial Bank Audit Department. I work as the manager.
Okay, right. Thank you, Surain. Aushadi Gamage. Yes,
Hi,
Aushadi.
hi, I'm Aushadi Gamage, working at Pan Asia Bank as Managing Internal Audit.
Okay, right. Thank you, Aushadi.
Yeah.
And Shehan Piris. Shehan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Shahan Piris. I'm working at Union Bank PLC and as an assistant manager at internal audit.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Shehan. And Kausik Srikhanda. Would you like to introduce yourself, Kausik?
Hi, Mr. Kapila. I'm Kaushik,
Yes.
working at KPMG Dubai as a senior IT auditor.
Okay. Thank you, Kaushik. And then we have Lakshan Fernando. Lakshan?
Hi, I'm Lakshan Fernando. I work as internal auditor, Bohem Lekna Private
Sorry.
Limited.
What's the company?
Bohem Lekna Private Limited.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you, Lakshan. And then we have Tusita Tenu. Where I think I can say Tenu. Yes, Tusita. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Tusita Tenu, working to Commercial Bank as
Commercial
a
Bank.
internal auditor. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Tusita. And we have Vanu Kuga. I am sorry if I misread the name. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Vanoja. I am working at Laughs Holding Limited.
Right. Okay. Yes. Internal auditor, right? Internal audit.
Internal auditing. Auditor.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Anuja. And we have Gihan Dizanayaka. Gihan, would you like to introduce yourself? Hi, Gihan. Right. And we have Gayashan Sham. I don't know. Gayashan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Gashan. Currently, I'm working for the St. Anthony's Industries Anton as the MIS, Management Information System and Process Accountant.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Gayashan. And then we have Surah Hashim. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Surah Hashim. Actually, I'm a director of UHY Sri Lanka.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. And did I miss Nadisha Fernando, I think?
I'm
please go
Nadisha
ahead.
Fernando, working as a senior internal audit officer at People's Bank.
People's Bank. Yes. Thank you, Nadisha. And then we have Deeptika. I think I can see only part of the name. Deeptika, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Deeptika Vikramasinghe. I'm a senior manager at Commercial Bank Internal Audit Department.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Deeptika. And Dilhani Veeraratna. Dilhani, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good evening. I am Dilhani Veeraratna. I am working at Business Allied Service as a Chartered Secretary.
Business Allied Services Chartered Secretary. Yes, Dilhani. I think you're part of our alumni. Yes, Jayani Udeshika, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Jani Udeshika. I'm working at Pan Asia Bank as an executive internal auditor.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Jayani. And Shant Vijay Veer, I suppose. Shant, would you like to introduce yourself? Shant, would you like to introduce yourself? Right. We'll move on. Tivarna, would you like to introduce yourself, Tivarna? Tivarna? Right. Lahiru Sampat, would you like to introduce yourself, Lahiru? Lahiru Sampat. Right. And then we'll move on. HRSM Priya Darshana, I suppose. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Shirani, working as Junior Audit Officer at Bank of Ceylon.
Bank of Ceylon. Yes. Thank you. And then we have Kavindra, I suppose. Would you like to introduce yourself? Kavindra?
Hi, I'm Kavindra. I'm working as an internal audit executive at Ben Holdings.
At Ben Holdings, right. Okay. Thank you, Kavindra. And Ihan, Shanta. Okay, please go ahead. Atam, would you like to introduce yourself? Right, move forward. Champika. Oh, Champika. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Randan, working at KPMG as audit supervisor.
Right, okay. Thank you. Then we have Sarini. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Satsani Munavera, and I'm working as an intern in the internal audit division at Laughs Holdings.
Right, okay. Thank you, Satsani. And Muhammad, I think Ilham. Would you like to introduce yourself? Ilham? Right, we'll move ahead. Asanga, good to have you again here. Another element.
Hi.
Yes, Asanga, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Asanga Upasa. I'm working as the Assistant General Manager for Ceylon Waste Management Private Limited.
Right, okay. Thank you, Asanga. Arshad Karim. Arshad, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Arshad Karim. I am working at Janata Action Guarantee Limited. I'm the head of finance, actually.
Head of finance, right. Okay. Thank you, Arshad. Aushadi, I think you introduced earlier. Did you introduce? Was it another Aushadi?
No, I
Right.
introduced myself.
Introduced, yeah. Sandra Kantan. Would you like to introduce yourself? Sandra Kantan, I think. I suppose
Hello, my name is Yadavan Sandrakantan. I work at BDO Partners. I am an assistant manager internal audit.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you, Sandakantan. Kapila Tilakaratna, I suppose. Kapila, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kapila Tilakaratna, Head of Group Internal for AIU Sri Lanka.
Yeah, Sri Lanka. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Dilusha Satara Singha, I suppose. Dilusha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, sir. I'm
Yes.
Didusha Saksarani. I'm working at Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminal as an internal auditor.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Dilusha. And Rasika Amara. Please, Rasika, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Rasika Amarasinghe. I'm working as finance manager in investment company in Qatar.
In Qatar, right. Okay. Thank you, Rasika. Nuan Pasindu. Nuan, would you like to introduce yourself? Hi, Nuan.
Sorry for the delay. Actually, I'm working at Navalaka Hospital, PLC, facility manager. Actually, I'm applying for this course in previously, but in this time I call you that in Zoom interview.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Ramesh Surya, I think Surya Bandarpal. Ramesh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening. I'm Ramesh Surya Arachi. I'm working in Bank of Ceylon as Senior Manager IS Audits.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ramesh. And then we have Yimilka Jayaratna, I suppose. Yimilka, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Yimilka Dilshani, working at Capital Maharaja Group as a Senior Audit Executive.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Yimilka. And we have Vasanta, again, Vasanta. Yes. Would you like to introduce yourself? Vasanta?
Yeah, I'm Vasanta Dias. Currently, I'm not working.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Vasanta. Samit Fernando. Samit, would you like to introduce yourself? Samit? Right. We'll move ahead. Madhushi Savindya. Madhushi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Madhushi Savindya. I'm working at Law Holding Sri Lanka. I'm the I'm internet internal audit division.
Right. Okay. Internet. Right. Thank you. And then Gamage Sarath. Would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry, I can only see a part of your name. Would you like to introduce yourself? Gamage Sarath. Okay, I think I covered all the names. If I have missed anything, I give another minute to introduce yourself if I not invited any one of you.
Hello, excuse me. Sorry, I am unable to connect due to unstable internet connection. I am
Right.
Rihan Disanayaka, working at Sampath IT Solution, which is a subsidiary of Sampath Bank PLC, as assistant manager internal audit.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Gehan. Anyone else?
I am Safnas. I was working at JH Personal Associate, or Quick Associate.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you. Anyone else? Right. Okay. So I'm not going to take too much time because it's almost 8:17 now. And we do have, once we start the classes, we do have a comprehensive e-learning system where we are going to share with you the material and certain mock examinations, all what we have been talking about you. We will be having a couple of mock examinations at the end of the session so that you will be gaining the practices that no one mentioned about. So what I'm going to do is now, since some of you may be having questions, I'm going to take time on that now. Probably in another lecture, I will take a short while to explain you all that. But right now, it's for you. Whatever the question that you have, you need to get clarified. Make it very short. This time is for you to get all the clarifications required, and you can take your time and ask the question. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Kapila. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, very well.
Okay, Mr. Kapila, I have 4 questions. So I'm actually working in the KPMG Dubai. So I can't physically available for the classes. So I am expecting for the online classes. So I have 4 questions regarding that. First of all, I'm an ACCA member. So we have another pathway for ACCA member. I believe we can take 1 exams and get through the CIA. So that details is not provided in this in this introduction. So I need some information about the ACCA for ACCA members pathway, whether any classes available for that, or whether any materials available for that. I just want to know. And for the online classes, currently you are planning to do the online classes. So if we follow continuously level 1, level 2, level 3, whether do we have online classes continuously, or after these pandemic over, you will be starting the physical classes? So I need more clarification regarding that. And third question is regarding the sponsorship. I think Mr. Prasanna Balachandran is not here, but I just want to ask whether I'm a member of IAA local body, Sri Lanka. So do we get any sponsorship from the local body IAA for the CIA registration, IF or examination, something like that? And the fourth question I would like to ask from Mr. Ashin, whether the ACCA pathway is best, or following the level 1, level 2, level 3 from the beginning is best. So I just want to know from his experience, because he might deal with several CIA members in abroad and Sri Lanka as well. So I just want to know, is starting from the beginning is best, or starting the ACCA pathway is best? So I would be happy if you can answer these 4 questions.
Ashen, you can start answering that. About the online classes, I will give the explanation. Ashen, you can go ahead, please.
Challenge exam, it costs about 1,200 USD for IIA members, and about 300 USD more for non-IIA.
Ashen, line is not very clear. Line is not very clear. Will it be possible for you to make it a bit louder?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, can. Yes, better.
Yeah, this is called the ACCIA Challenge Exam, where ACCA, those who have passed, can sit for this paper. Of course, it contains 150 questions, unlike the detailed three-part CIA exam. So what they expect here is that it's a 3-hour paper offered in only English with 150 multiple choice questions. If you follow the CIA part 1, part 2 and part 3, of course, you will learn a lot. You will cover the entire syllabus. What they are expecting here is that if you have finished your ACCA membership, there might be certain overlapping areas. But nevertheless, I have gone through the ACCA syllabus. It does not cover part 1 and part 2. Part 3, of course, is covered in ACCA, but part 1 and part 2, it is certainly not covered. So you can sit for this exam, the challenge exam, but what I suggest is that you will have to go through part 1 and part 2 thoroughly, because that deals with the internal audit standards, which is not covered in the ACCA syllabus. The ACCA syllabus would maybe cover, if you have selected the auditing subject, auditing and assurance subject, the auditing standards related to an external audit may have been covered, but certainly not the internal audit standards. So you have to, but instead of sitting for 3 exams and facing 325 MCQs, sitting for 1 paper in 1 shot is, in my opinion, much more easy and quicker. But the challenge would be in the preparation, right? So you can sit for the challenge exam with 150, half the number of questions, unlike when you take the full all 3 parts. But you would have to go through the material related to part 1 and part 2 thoroughly and do all the questions. So it's up to you, Kaushik, what the pathway you need to take. But my advice is part 1 and part 2, you may have to follow classes, or if you are doing it on a self-study basis, those 2 parts you will have to do there will have to be thorough learning. Otherwise, you will not pass the exam. Part 3, of course, I think you have covered in the ACCA examination, which you have already done. Was there another question, Kaushik?
Thank you, Mr. Ashen. So that is clear. I have completed CISA recently, CISA. So you are also one of the CISA holder. So I have covered a few other areas as well related to IT area. So I don't have any experience in internal audit area. So I would prefer to follow the classes. But I'm asking, like, after completing the classes, like it may take around 1.5 years or 1 year to complete all 3 levels. So after completing the classes, is it better to take the ACCA pathway?
Yes, I would suggest that. Third stage, you could do a self-study. Third stage, you could do a self-study, in my opinion, as you have already covered the subject matter in a different course. But part 1 would be about 3.5 months. If you are really smart, dedicated and committed, as Nuwan stated, you should be able to finish both parts in about 9 months. If you are dedicated, you don't have to wait for 1.5 years. And you can sit for the parts in any order you want. If you want, you can sit for part 3 immediately. The choice is yours. But only thing is, if you come down in 1 part, you can't resit for another 60 days, that part. But you can do another part if you wish.
Okay,
so
understood.
Follow classes for part 1. Then you will learn how to, prepare yourselves, how the MCQs will be formulated from different areas of the syllabus. As you said, if you have done CISA, that would be very, very helpful, because when you take part 1 and part 2, I think based on what you've already done in CISA, you may have covered about a good 20%. 20%. So it will be helpful.
Yeah, correct.
Now, regarding your question, Kaushik, on the online classes, yes, what we usually do is even the other programs, because we are geared to offer the physical classes on online basis. So what we will do is if you're enrolled for the program, like say we have high quality cameras, so we will be streaming the lecture, and those who are registered and following it from the overseas, you will be able to follow the lectures. Right now, other programs that we offer, we do have students following from various countries using that modality. With regard to the level 2 and level 3, it depends on actually how soon we get when we get the batch of students from here, then we can start. So that timing will depend on how soon you'll do the exam, and we have a couple of students to do the follow the classes. Hope that we made things clear for you.
Yes. So if I started from the level 1, so continuously you will be doing the classes, and online also will be available, right, for us?
Online will be available. Online will be available. Continuation, starting time, what time we are going to start will depend on when couple of you do the exam and you get through the exam and ready to do the level 2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Any other clarifications?
Yeah, so there was this lady Dilhani who wanted to know about CIA in comparison to other accounting qualifications. Actually, it is not comparable because in ACCA, CIMA, or in Chartered, you learn about Sri Lanka accounting standards or IFRS or auditing standards, taxation, corporate law, and you go in depth into management accounting as well. But in CIA, the main focus is on internal audit standards. So it's a different qualification altogether. If you are from an accounting background doing CIA, it will be a little easier, I suppose. But the subject matter is completely different. If you are in the internal audit field, the CIA is the main qualification. In fact, it is the only qualification that is there for internal auditors. Of course, you have other qualifications like CRMA, certification in risk management assurance. Then you have certified financial services auditor. And for those who are engaged in fraud and forensics, you have the certified fraud examiner qualification offered by ACFE. But if you are in the internal audit field, what I recommend is that you do the CIA, because it will teach you things which are very relevant to your day-to-day work. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ashan. This is answering Dilhani Viraratna's question, which he posed through the chat. Any other questions? Sorry, someone else was trying to ask something. Hello?
So, Mohammed Hassan has asked, what is the cost? So if I were to go through the cost, generally the application fee is $115 US. CIA Part 1 is 280, Part 2 is 230 USD, Part 3 is 230. If you multiply that by 2, it's about 56,000 for Part 1, and Part 2 and 3, it would be about 46,000 each. That is, of course, if you are a member. If you become a member of IIA by paying 9,000, your fee is about, in total, 80,000 to 100,000 less than a non-member. So what we recommend is for you to become a member before you sit for the exam, and become a member and then apply for the exam. Then you can get the membership rate. So if you are a member, you would save about 1 lakh compared to the fees that a non-member has to pay. So Part 1 is about 56,000, Part 2 about 40,000, like that, in that range. So the whole exam would cost about 150,000. The entire examination fees goes to IIA Global, and you have to enter online through their global website and pay via credit card. I hope you heard me, Rafika and Mohammed Hassan.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Ashan, for that. And of course, those who are already registered, the registration fee with the Academy of Finance for the program, the entire program is 35,000 rupees, or an appropriate US dollar amount if it is joining from abroad. And other levels also may be slightly high, but it will not be drastically different. That will be the fee payable for the following the course here. Any other questions?
So Kapila, the fees that I mentioned are the IIA exam fees, the CIA exam
Yes.
fees. So part 1, part 2 and part 3 payable directly to IIA Global.
Also, Ashin, would you remind them about this? Tell them about this registration fee also.
There is an exam registration fee of $115, which needs to be renewed every 6 months. So if you are sitting for part 1, part 2, part 3 within a period of 18 months, that 115 USD would have to be paid 3 times, apart from your exam part fee. So you have application fee of 115, then CIA part 1 280, CIA part 2 and part 3 230 each. The application fee, exam application fee, needs to be renewed every 6 months.
Okay, thank you, Ashin. Anyway, now you will have access to what has been discussed in this induction session, as well as our staff member who has been communicating with you. If you have not got that, we will be sharing with you the complete cost details. Don't worry about that. We will share all the details with you, all the cost details. Yeah, Hasan. Now what we'll do is, no, you can call, but we will share with you a document with all the fees details. Don't worry, we'll share that document with you.
Hello.
Yes, Rasika, please go ahead.
Yes, Ashin, your voice is not clear. If you can come closer to the mic, then it would be convenient for others as well. As a question, I wanted to raise, I mean, what is the study materials that you are going to use? I mean, there are GLAME, HOC, and PCR, and there are like 3 or 4 institutions that are using the materials. I mean, that are publishing. So, which are the which category that you are going to use? I mean, are you going to produce something brand new, or are you using a GLAME or something like that? And how do you going to do the practicing if you are doing on online tests? I mean, for the mock exams.
Right, so it's actually a hybrid. I will be having my own slide deck plus material from GLEM. GLEM is the study guide that I used when I sat for my exam, and I believe that provides sufficient knowledge, succinct knowledge on what you need to know. So it's a mixture of the two. It will be GLEM review, the latest edition, material from that, as well as other PowerPoint slides which I have prepared on various topics, on fraud, on IT risks, etc. So it's a mixture. On the online exam, I suppose Kapila will be able to advise you on that. On the lectures, of course, you will be able to access it online. With regards to the mock questions and all that, I'm not exactly sure. Kapila will respond to that.
Yes, Rasika. Actually, what we'll do is, with regard to the practice questions, mock exams, etc., we do have an online portal. And once towards the end of the session, once you get close to the end of the session, we will schedule we'll set certain time windows, and within those time windows, you will have access to all the practice questions as well as mock examination. So that will happen through our learning portal.
Okay, thank you, Kapila.
Right.
Sorry, this is like a personal question now. Actually, I already enrolled for the exams, and my exams are on first week of February. So if the course is going for 6 months, I won't be able to enroll for that one. But can I enroll with stage 2 now? I mean, to continue for 6 months?
Rasika, only thing is right now. Sorry, go ahead, Ashen.
Yeah, right now, as you were going to say, Kapila, we are only doing part 1 at the moment. So the part 1 will commence from next week and go on for about three months, 3 to 4 months. So I don't think, in my opinion, that we would be able to complete part 1 classes by February, the day of your exam. But what you might sometimes be able to do is maybe if it's a part 1 exam that you have scheduled, maybe you can get extension. Of course, that would involve a fee of about $100 or a reschedulement after cancelling. That would cost you about 75 USD. So part 2 classes we haven't started yet. That would happen most likely mid next year if we have sufficient numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so Ashen, I think if we don't have any other questions, we will wind up this session. Is there anything else that Ashen you would like to share with them at this moment before we wind up?
Well, what I want to say is, since we are starting classes next week, I would like to advise as soon as possible. As soon as possible, so that all students can join from the first session itself, because sometimes we find students joining midway and they have missed a few sessions. So if you all are keen on sitting for the exam, kindly register with the academy within the next few days, so that by next Thursday you would be able to, you will have access to the online sessions. So that is the only piece of advice that I would like to give you now.
Sure. Thank you, Ashen. Thank you for that. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, just have one question. We are all in separate industries. And these exams are related to all separate industries. Industry means as a banking, finance, or operations, manufacturing. Is this course units are course module cover all the industries as internal auditor?
Not really. What you will learn is industry, independent of industry, really. But when you go for the exam, questions may be based on trading companies and manufacturing. They don't really set questions from specific industries as such. The course content also does not focus on banking or because these standards are applicable to any industry. Now, if you do the certified financial services auditor course offered by IIA, that is of course focusing on banking and insurance and securities. That is of course you learn very little, that's limited in knowledge. But CIA covers industry independent standards. So that is which is applicable to any industry. If you look at the course material covered, that doesn't specify talk of any specific industry. It is industry independent.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Ashen.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Lashan. Right. Okay. So then we will wind this up, and then, like I told you, we will have access to whatever that the discussion that we had during this session, so that you will be more informed. At the same time, you will receive an email with whatever the additional information that has been requested through this question and answer session. So don't worry about that information. And like Ashen suggested, I think what you need to do now is you need to make your decision to be a certified internal auditor. And if you decide so, if you set a target to do that, start that within the next year, you can get in touch with our staff and enroll for the program, and we'll be happy to help you. Okay then, thank you once again to all of you for participating in this session. and hope you had a useful session. And thank you, Ashen. Thank you very much for your time, and also we not with here, Prasanna and Nuan also for the time. So we'll wind up with this the session now. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.